won the minds and the hearts of many women. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Samy Gemayel to the University of Sydney and to the Australian Lebanese Foundation. Sheikh Samy, we are delighted to have you with us. I look on you as a beacon shining light on the future of Lebanon. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to thank Sydney University for inviting me. I would like to thank Fadia for these very touching words. Thank you very much. And I would like this opportunity to stand here before you to be an interaction. So I'm just going to talk for 10 minutes, maybe 12, and the rest will be a Q&A. So we'll have the opportunity to exchange ideas and to be able to talk about all the issues you want to talk about, not what I want to say. I will start by an overview of what's going on in the Middle East and North Africa, the MENA region, and the challenges ahead, and try to propose some solutions. And then we will discuss this further and deeper, if you like. It has been a turbulent year and a half in the Middle East and North Africa. From Yemen to Bahrain, from Syria to Egypt and Libya to Tunisia, the world witnessed, in what is romantically referred to as the Arab Spring, the revolt of the people and the fall of long-standing dictators. These Arab uprisings, to use a more academic term, shifted political dynamics and broke misconceptions that were long perceived as the governing norm in Arab societies. To begin with, they broke the wall of fear that manipulated the lives of millions for decades. Fear based on intimidation, persecution, torture, and unfounded prosecutions was no longer an obstacle in the face of freedom. When people took to the streets, sadly at a high bloody cost, the cracks of the police state opened wide and people were no longer fearful to act on their own. Second, uprisings promoted the power of the people against the unchecked power of the state. For decades, it was the irresponsible state that monopolized governance under a facade of popular legitimacy. Once the wall of fear was brought down, the will of the people regained its place as the basis of authority. Third, uprisings downplayed, if not dismissed, the archaic and wooden rhetoric of foreign conspiracy, imperialism, and Zionist intervention, among others. These long-gone slogans were heavily used by oppressive regimes to rally their people and instill legitimacy to their rule. The people at the heart of the uprisings revolted for universal human rights and fundamental freedom in the civil, political, economic, and social dimensions, surely not for fighting Israel or combating imperialism. This is a very important point. I would like to highlight it, because for 20 years, everyone who opposed one of these dictatorships in the Middle East, they were directly accused of being pro-Israel. So it was the slogan used by the dictatorships, or the excuse, to put all the opponents in prison. So I believe that the first step was to be stronger than these slogans and go ahead with our revolutions. Fourth, Through the power of the people, uprisings were able to achieve what terrorism and radicalization could not. Toppling regimes through people power proved to be realistic, genuine, and more durable than Al-Qaeda and its calls for toppling pro-Western Arab governments. Finally, through the use of internet and smartphones, the people behind the uprisings were able to overcome the monopolized and traditional mass media of their repressive regimes. Average citizens became freedom fighters and journalists at once, diffusing to the world images of horror, torture, and crackdowns. We also have images came from Syria, from the phones. It was recorded movies on the phones, and they used to put just a small paper to say what date it was, because they couldn't broadcast any message. Yet, notwithstanding these positive developments, it remains to be seen how corresponding challenges will be addressed for a democratization process to properly unfold. Under the previous regimes, stability was ensured without regard for freedoms. Dictators certainly preferred stable and secure orders to democratic and free systems. Post-uprisings, the direction is toward freer and more open systems, but ones that are proving to be less stable and secure at the moment. How to reconcile socio-economic stability and security with the basic guarantee of rights and freedom is one challenge to overcome. The militarization of uprisings is another alarming challenge. Libya, before the fall of Gaddafi, and Syria under Assad are two cases in point. Militarization takes place when non-violent means of revolt fail in toppling a regime, and where civil protests recede in favor of armed actions against regime forces. Just a small remark here, to say that the Syrian revolution stayed peaceful for the first 6 months, and militarization started after 6 months. So it is the result of the violence used by the regime against the peaceful protesters that led the Syrian people to use weapons to defend themselves. Militarization raises concern with respect to arms control, law and order upon the termination of conflict, while equally posing a humanitarian and security challenge to neighboring countries in terms of refugee influx and arms smuggling. Elections in the post-uprising era that are either underway or completed raise questions as to the nature of the winning parties and their commitment to a governance that is more open and inclusive compared to past experiences. This raises the question of Islamists who are divided today between Salafists and Muslim Brotherhood. It remains to be seen how these forces will govern and along what lines. A very big question. Will they respect the other non-Muslim as a national partner, particularly Christians in the case of Egypt and Syria after the fall of Assad? Will power moderate their behavior and force them into democratic compromise? We will wait to see what the Islamists have to answer with respect to problems of power sharing, unemployment, national debt, fiscal regulations, environmental degradation, among other issues. Power tends to expose, and it is through governance that we will appraise the performance of Islamists. If they fail, we should be hopeful that the people will force them down, either through ballot box or the street, just like they did to their undemocratic predecessors. So where do we head from here, and how can we address the challenges at hand? Answering this question necessitates a multi-pronged approach. Primarily, the outdated constitutions of oppressive regimes need to be revisited. Constitutions are social contracts capturing the expectations of the people in a text that imposes the spirit of the new regime on the ruins of the old. Constitutional revision, writing, and agreement is a complex process, but constitutional change is the first step to a successful uprising. After all, anticipated democratic practices need to mirror democratic texts, Ideally, a constitutional blueprint should cater to the following two items, among others. The first one, some type of self-determination, such as decentralization or quota system, that will enable the devolution of powers from the center to the regions, hence providing checks and balances to the abuse of power from the central government. It will also guarantee the participation of minorities in the decision-making process. Two, a collection of human rights institutions, for instance, bills of rights, constitutional courts, human rights commissions, equality commissions, new police and criminal justice structures, and measures providing for social and economic stability along with gender equality. Second, getting into a constitutional revision requires a broad national coalition for a constituent assembly. Such a coalition would include the largest number of parties, factions, communities behind the uprising and provide wide political and social stability until elections for parliament, government, president in light of the new constitution are held. The more inclusive and respectful of pluralism the constitutional engineering process is, the more stable and viable the post-uprising era will be. Communal reconstruction is another pressing approach. With the fall of dictators, a penchant to vengeance naturally surfaces. Arab societies are faced with a challenge in this regard. Replacing oppressive regimes with similar reproduced systems or substituting them with ones that are more democratic, representative, and realistic. Vengeance, reprisal, and hatred breed more than the same kind and place us in an endless vicious circle. Wherever possible, a mix of independent trials, amnesty, truth disclosure, and apology need to be employed as an alternative course. And here the best example is the truth and reconciliation process we saw in South Africa and other, we saw also in ex-Yugoslavia after the fall of the Soviet Union. Finally, educational curriculums need to be revisited following decades of oppression towards a greater understanding and appreciation of democratic practices and human rights. In this regard, international NGOs, in partnership with local cohorts and civil society, need to assume their responsibilities in raising awareness despite the complexities involved. Equally, the international community, and particularly its Western democracies, need to make sure that whatever results the ballot box produces, it will not be a one-time process. International diplomacy needs to be creative in ensuring the respect of rotational office and minority right at par. The fate of the Arab uprisings hangs on how much progress we will fulfill from the above. This is my ardent hope. More than that, it is my conviction. Thank you. Before going in the I would like to say a few words that the Middle East is always the main focus of all political science courses in the whole world. And I believe that Lebanon...
What not to do?
Huh?
What not to do?
I believe that Lebanon, as a very small country, is also being the main interest of a lot of professors in the world because of this complexity, because all the problems of the Middle East, we can find them in Lebanon. We can find the Saudi-Iranian conflict, we can find the Sunni-Shiite conflict, we can find the Muslim-Christian conflict, we can find the Arab-Israeli conflict. All the conflicts of the Middle East, we can find them in this very small country. So it is very important also to talk a bit about this small country called Lebanon. to say a few words, saying that our country today is, we fear that our country may pay the price of all these conflicts in the whole Middle East. And in these past days, some Lebanese citizens paid the high price. So I would like to ask everyone for a minute of silence for all the Lebanese that gave their life in the past few days and all the Lebanese martyrs throughout the history of Lebanon. So if we can stand up for a minute of silence. Thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Waleed.
Samy, it's James Ricky. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Australian Lebanese Foundation for giving us the opportunity to speak to a Lebanese politician. Especially I say that on behalf of the many youth people here who usually don't have the opportunity. It's very rare that Lebanese politicians come here and speak in a forum like this that you are doing. I have a couple of observations for you. I'd like your comments on that.
Please go ahead.
The first one is with respect to the Lebanese immigrants. I took the opportunity over the weekend, knowing that I was coming here, to look at practically every Lebanese political party website, and not one, including the Qatars, mentioned any agenda regarding the Lebanese immigrants coming back to Lebanon, or an interactive website that would ask questions and answers. In fact, it took me quite a while to figure out how to send an email. And I find that very interesting because of the fact of, you know, our technology world today, and many immigrants being here who are very, very interested in Lebanon, not having the opportunity to study what is the effective political agenda of a political party in Lebanon with respect to the Lebanese migrants, and what can it do for us to help us to maintain our contact with the motherland. The second observation I'd like to share with you is, you mentioned that Lebanon is a small country that has many, many issues, and all the issues are played in Lebanon. Looking at it from a positive perspective, why can't we have a non-political group in Lebanon lobbying the United Nations to support Lebanon being the example of cultural diversity in the Middle East? It's clearly the one country where Christianity and Islam and Druze and so forth are living, notwithstanding the political turmoil, in a relatively democratic type environment. And I just wonder if we can move that agenda out of the politicians into a group of people within Lebanon, esteemed people, to use it a bit like a Switzerland and turn that tide completely around. Thank you.
Very valid points, both of them. I would just like to say that today we are, I believe that there are some groups that are really happy that Lebanese diaspora stays out of the country. And they are doing no efforts to get them back, or to keep them, I would say, to keep them in touch with their country. And this is exactly the opposite of how we think. We believe that the diaspora, the Lebanese diaspora, has a very important role to play in Lebanon, because you are, I want to take you as an example, you are free today to, for example, if you want to vote in the next elections, you are free to vote for whoever you see fit to be in office. In Lebanon, people vote because they are afraid of someone, or because someone paid them, or because someone is bribing them in a way or another. We still have free people in Lebanon, but not as much as outside of Lebanon. So we believe in your role. We believe that we should do more for that. Today we are battling for you to be able to vote from here. This is our way of contributing into keeping you close to your country and to keeping you involved in the faith of your country. I wish we could do better, and I wish we could do more, and I promise you that we will do more. We will try to do everything we can to let the Lebanese people abroad feel that they can come back to their country. For us to do that, we have to, I would say, we have to work a lot inside Lebanon to make Lebanon look like you want it to be, so you can go back to it. So as long as Lebanon doesn't fit in your expectations, you will not come back. So we are trying to work on this country to be as you want it to be, so you can come back to it. In the meantime, we are working for you to be able to vote from here, and this is the way we are contributing. To the other question, you are absolutely right, but I am from a political party, so it's not my job to do something non-political. But I would really support any initiative of that kind, and if I can be part of it, I would be glad to. We are lobbying a lot in the UN, in all the countries in the world. Recently here in Australia, we met three federal ministers in Canberra last week. We met the Minister of Immigration, we met the Minister of Tourism and Energy, we met the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Carr, and we discussed, we lobbied for Lebanon as we wanted, and exactly on the point you talked about, how to preserve the pluralistic Lebanon, the multicultural Lebanon. And I believe this is an international responsibility, not only a Lebanese responsibility.
I have three comments for your
If everyone can just try to put one comment so I can take, because there are a lot of people who want to.
All right. People talk about rights a lot, the right to be a democracy, but democracy entails an enormous amount of responsibility. If you have democracy, you have to use it responsibly. So in relation to the politics of the Middle East and Lebanon, perhaps you could comment on that idea. It's not sufficient just to talk about rights, we also have to talk about being responsible for the democracy that we're given in the way that we behave as citizens.
I think I talked about that in my intervention. I said that you are absolutely right. It's not enough to have democracy, we should know how to use it. Because if we do not use it in a responsible way, we can go back to dictatorship through democracy. Just as a reminder, the Nazi Party was brought to power by democracy. The Communist Party was brought up also in democratic means, then by revolution. But the main example, the Fascist Party and the Nazi Party were brought up by democratic elections. And the first thing they did, once in power, is to eliminate this democracy. So we have to also be careful that the people that we are electing are not people that will destroy this democracy. So this is a very important challenge, and this challenge is for the people that we are going to go and elect their representatives. it's on this responsibility. It's the Syrian people responsibility, it's the Egyptian responsibility, it's all the new countries, that, the new regimes that are going to take place. It's the responsibility of the people to do that. But I don't believe that in the name of the irresponsibility to stay with the dictatorship. There should be, there is always, I would say, a transition period. There's always fears that this is not going to work, but there is no alternative to democracy. The alternative to democracy is dictatorship. So we have to try this democracy. And we just have to hope that the people that are going to elect will be responsible enough to know who to elect.
Firstly, thank you, Samy, for coming and giving the talk here. On behalf of all the students who are studying in Australia, thank you for making us, however small, feel a part of the political process in Lebanon and helping build it up to the place that we want it to be. My question is this, and I understand at the outset that there's no silver bullet to fixing Lebanon. There's no one thing that's going, and the Middle East for that matter, that will automatically solve all the problems. But it seems to me, particularly in Lebanon, that a lot of the issues are around disputes amongst religions, and I guess that is sort of made a bigger problem because the parties are founded on religious principles. Is part of the solution to establish a secular party, not discriminating upon religions at all, so that both a Muslim and a Christian can be together and work together in the same party, rather than against each other, fighting for power in these different parties? Now, firstly, is it possible for that ever to happen in Lebanon? And if so, would it actually have an impact?
I wish people in Lebanon could ask these kinds of questions. I think we would be much in a much better shape. In order to answer your question, I will have to make another lecture. But I will try to be as brief as possible. I believe the problem is not that you have Christians and Sunnis and Shiites and Druze and 18 communities in Lebanon. The problem is not that we have parties that are in majority from this community or from the other. We believe that the problem is in the political system. We believe that the political system is inadequate to the reality of the Lebanese society. We believe that no multicultural society can live with a centralized government and a centralized system. And if you take a look, all the multicultural countries in the world are decentralized countries or decentralized state or even federal state. So we believe that the problem is with our system, not with the people or the communities. And I will try to explain why and how. In Lebanon, you have a central state that has all the powers and all the money. Everything is in the hands of this government that is directing Lebanon. And around this government, you have 18 communities. In order to have their, to be able to have their rights and to get their rights from this central state, the only choice they have is to put their hands on this state, because this central government has a place for only one community. So every community in Lebanon has been fighting each other for 70 years just to put their hand on this central government. And it's been that way for the past 70 years. The communities are fighting each other to put their hand on the central government, because if they are not in this central government, they will be out of the box. They will be out of the political decision making. They will not be able to provide their people with the basic needs, because all the money is there. So for us, the solution is to decentralize. Decentralize. You know, not having all this money in the same pocket in the central government. Decentralize it. Distribute the money to elected bodies in every region. And these elected bodies will be the ones who will deal with the people. And this, I believe, once you will have this, the confrontation between the communities will end, because there will be no need for confrontation anymore, because this central government will be decentralized. So we will not need to fight each other to put our hand on this central government, because this central government will be nearly empty. So the confrontation will be more inside every community than between the communities. It will be intra-communitarian fight and not inter-community fight. So, for example, I will give an example, let's say in Nabati, for example. In Nabati, there's only Shiites in Nabati. Once you have local elections in Nabati, directly, there will be two lists. And there will be a confrontation between two lists, all from the Shiite community. So, I will say the democratic process will be inside every community and will not be a fight between two communities, because the fight between the communities is always leading to civil war. And we believe that decentralization is the first step, and the second step is neutrality. Neutrality of Lebanon is a must, because the Lebanese community have been fighting with each other for external things that are happening outside our borders. Like today, for example, half of the Lebanese people are with Assad and the half are against Assad. And now, today, people in Lebanon are fighting because of what's going on in Syria. We are fighting each other because of what's going on outside our borders. 4 years ago, we were fighting because Saudis and Iranians were fighting. So all the people who liked Saudis were fighting the people who liked Iran. So this has to stop somewhere. We believe that neutrality and decentralization are the two pillars to build a country based on peace, and to stop this quarrel between all the Lebanese communities. So then, once we will have this, there will be no need for, I will say, communitarian parties. Then you will be able to have parties that are multicultural and multi-confessional, because the fight will not be between the confessions anymore. It will be on ideas, it will be on an economical program, it will be on a social program. It will not be who will be in power. Is it the Sunni or the Shiites or the Christians? So the political debate will not be anymore a communitarian debate. It will be a social, economical, and political debate. It will not be a communitarian debate. And we believe that we can achieve that through decentralization and neutrality. I wish I had more time to explain more with graphics and with more explanation, but I will, maybe we will talk later after the
I know, like you said this, Your Honor, but why can't the Lebanese government disarm all this like militias and also the militiamen? You always see them now for the last 2 days. It's like, you know, it's like they go like berserk and threaten the life of people. Why can't the Lebanese government say enough to like arms towards individual and collect all the arms, disarm Hezbollah and disarm all the other, and stop the Palestinians from arming themselves. Thank you.
I am asking myself the same question. I really believe that the state has no excuse for not imposing the rule of law on all the Lebanese people, and I completely agree with you. Unfortunately, there are people that who don't want Lebanon to move forward and to be a normal and civilized country.
Minister Samy, you spoke about some local measures that you believe would lead to democracy in Lebanon. At the moment, we see that the ruling government is ruled by political parties where the decision making is not made inside of Lebanon, yet it's made from outside the borders. You, as a person who's trying to aim for democracy, how successful do you think you're going to be in able to implementing these local measures inside of Lebanon when you're imposed by a ruling government whose decisions come from outside of Lebanon?
Very good question. I really believe that in the heart of every Lebanese citizen there is somewhere a national conscience. And I am putting my money on this small conscience, in this small national and Lebanese conscience in the heart of every Lebanese person. And more than that, what we are trying to promote is that we have to stop this vicious cycle. Because everyone who believes that he can use an external power to impose his views on another Lebanese is wrong, because a day will come, the other Lebanese will find a support from another country and will face him the same way he faced him. For example, Hezbollah took the support of Syria and Iran for several years and imposed his views by force on all the Lebanese people. But this, how do you think this will end? This will end by the other group finding another country and another support from another place and do the same with Hezbollah that Hezbollah did with the other. And unfortunately, it's been that way for the past 70 years because our Lebanese community are struggling for power. Everyone tried to find support somewhere else in order to prevail on the other community. We are not understanding that the best way to get out of this vicious cycle is to sit together and understand that my fellow Lebanese is closer than me, it's closer to me than another country abroad. And this is the way we are going to stop this vicious cycle. It's once we understand that there will never be a winner. You can win for 1 year, you can win for 6 months, but you can never prevail on other Lebanese, because these other Lebanese are part of you, are part of this country, are made in this country. You cannot eliminate anyone in Lebanon. And usually crises like ours they are always solved when a civil war happens. When a civil war happens, everyone is tired after a civil war. So after a civil war, you find always a way, you do like your homework, you try to understand what happened, how it happened, and you try to build your country on new basis. And you try to find solutions. And for example, Switzerland built its political system because of an ongoing internal war for decades. They said one day, okay, we have to stop. You cannot eliminate me, I cannot eliminate you. Let's try to find a new political system that will enable you and enable me to live together in peace in one country. And this is what Lebanon should do. This is what should have been done in the 1990 after the Lebanese war, is for the Lebanese to sit together and try to understand why the Lebanese war occurred and why it happened and try to find solution. But we didn't do that because the Lebanese always want to lie to each other. They always want to, they never want to say the truth. They always want to find the easy solution. The easy solution is to close the book, open a new book and forget what happened. This is the easy solution. The hard solution is putting everything on the table, discussing everything, trying to find why it happened, trying to find solutions, and build Lebanon on new basis with a new political system. That's what should have been done in 1990, and it didn't happen. And that's why it's, today we still have problems, because we didn't solve our problems, we just postponed our problems. And today, my fear is that we are still postponing. We sit together in small reunions like the Ta'if reunion. We sit together in Ta'if, we lied to each other, we distributed the powers and say this way it's gonna work, we distributed the money, and we moved forward without trying to understand anything. Then, after the 7th of May 2007, we sat down in Doha this time, and the same thing. We sat together, we lied to each other, we distributed the ministries, we distributed the seats in the parliament, and we distributed the money, and we decided to move forward without trying to understand why the 7th of May happened. And today, I am sure that they will try to do the same. They will sit together, and they will lie to each other, and they will move forward without solving any problem. And all the problems are still there. They are just hiding somewhere, and they will appear one day. So we believe that Lebanon should do a truth and reconciliation process. Should go through a truth and reconciliation process.
Has Hezbollah been the strongest political party?
Excuse me?
Can you spare check with Hezbollah the way it is in the decision making from Iran and Syria?
This is important. Once the Syrian support will disappear and Hezbollah will feel alone in the region, Iran will be far away. There will not be Syria to do the intermediate between Iran and him. And there will be a Sunni regime in Syria that will be pressuring him. I believe that then Hezbollah will be more able to discuss a long-term solution than today. So we hope with the balance of power, with the changing of the balance of power, we will push everyone to sit down and try to find solutions. Please.
My name is Anwar Hal. Sheikh Samy, أهلا وسهلا في الاستوديو. Let me start by thanking Fadia and the foundation. Let me start by thanking Fadia and the foundation for allowing us this opportunity to debate with a unique politician face-to-face issues without restriction. A politician who believes in dialogue, not in monologue, who wants to listen when he wants to talk. My question is simple. Your ultimate aim is to see, as 14th of March, to see the regime of Al-Assad in Syria toppled. Let's assume that would be achieved. And the alternative at the helm of the regime in Syria would be the Brotherhood. How would you see this result? Is it a victory for democracy in Lebanon, for stability in Lebanon? Have you discussed this issue with the opposition parties in Syria?
First of all, we don't believe that any new regime in Syria will be worse than the current one. The current regime occupied Lebanon for 30 years. It destroyed our houses. It killed our people. It stole our money for 30 years. And I am not sure that anyone can do better than this. So that's why we want to give a chance for democracy. We want to believe the statement that was issued by the Muslim Brotherhood, stating that it will respect Lebanon's independence, it will try to build a pluralistic country, a democratic Syria. We hope that this statement will be true. But in all cases, we will be here to face any new regime that will try to put its hands on Lebanon.
We have
7:45.
7:45. Very quick question.
We still have 15 minutes, right?
No. 10 minutes. 7:40 exactly we have to go.
Please go ahead.
Sorry, my name is Jean-Paul Khoury. I'm a student here at Sydney University. There are also many other Lebanese Australians who are studying at this university, at Notre Dame University, at UNSW, and we all are part of this community, this Lebanese community. We've actually just recently petitioned for an organisation, the Young Australian Lebanese Association, to be opened up and to begun at Sydney University, also known as Yalla. I wanted to know if at the moment there is no real interaction between the universities in Australia and with the universities in Lebanon or the education system. Many of us have that desire to go back to our homeland to learn with other Lebanese people. Is there any chance in the future that this situation and this opportunity can arise?
Actually, it's an open invitation to the responsibles here in the University of Sydney, an open invitation to open links with all the best universities in Lebanon. I'm sure we have very close ties with the Lebanese universities, with the AUB, with NDU, with the Catholic University, LAU, all the important universities of Lebanon. We would be glad to have a partnership or to have a privileged relationship between our universities and the University of Sydney. So it's an open invitation. If we want to proceed with this, I would be glad to help with this.
I run a business across the Middle East, and the people that actually control the business are all Lebanese. Some are Sunnis, some are Shiites, some are Christians, but they're actually all Lebanese. And we never take them back to America, Samy and all the main cities, but we never take them back to Lebanon to meet, because outside Lebanon, they're Lebanese. Inside Lebanon, they're a problem. It's just a fact of life. We may absolutely run the main businesses right across the Middle East. And I have 21 Lebanese managers in 14 cities. So it's a problem. We've got a real problem.
I believe that we should just find the right political system to enable these individuals to succeed in Lebanon as they are succeeding outside of Lebanon. But you just have to provide them with the proper system for them to feel that they really accomplished themselves. But I know that today our system that is putting the Lebanese into confrontation, it is leading to all the bad things we are seeing every day. Sorry.
Sheikh Samy, first of all, I'd like to welcome you to Australia. On behalf of all the Lebanese Australians here, you're welcome, and welcome the Gemayel family as well. I asked your father many years ago, Sheikh, the question was, he was in Melbourne about the situation in Lebanon and the regional problems we have around Lebanon. And he was optimistic. Now we're standing here where I'm asking the same question. It seems to me that the conflict still goes on. Lebanon is still divided. And worse than that, the Christians are divided. And the conflict is getting worse. There is no issues between Christians and Muslims as far as I'm concerned while I was in Lebanon. The problem now lies between the Christian community. And also, what I find is that we as Lebanese migrants live abroad. Yes, by all means we want to go back to Lebanon. By all means we want to invest in Lebanon. And by all means we want our university students here to go and meet their counterparts in Lebanon. However, the confidence is not there. I can't imagine how we're going to move forward and get a stability in Lebanon to encourage us to go back, to encourage us to maintain our presence in Lebanon, and more importantly, to bring peace back to all religions in Lebanon, specifically the Christian community.
Listen, I will be very brief to answer your question. I will say I am giving all my time and all my everything I have to fight for Lebanon and for this country to be a normal and a civilized and a peaceful country. And we will continue to fight. And as long as there are people in Lebanon that believe in this country, and there are young people like the people here in this room that believe in this country, especially the young men that are standing out there, I believe that Lebanon will one day restore his beauty as it was before.
It's the same answer. The same answer.
Okay, so I have two questions. One relating to Middle East and North Africa. We said before that democracy with responsibility is a very good choice. But what if there was really a democracy without responsibility, in the sense that these regimes had dictatorships back in their countries in a different form, in a democratic form? And my second question is, you said that neutrality and decentralization are the two main pillars into a new government. Why can't we go ahead and at least get the political parties to assemble a government that is neutral enough to be able to get through the economical problems of Lebanon, because the problems of Lebanon are like an octopus. They have so many arms, regional and Lebanese and etc. So for the problems such as electricity, national debts, and things like that, why couldn't there be a neutral government that governs all these things without any corruption or extra debt or any of these things?
Okay, first, if the elected bodies turn their democracy into a dictatorship, it's the responsibility of the people to go back to the streets, and I said it. And if the people will elect people that will go into a dictatorship, it's their responsibility. They will pay the price of their vote. It will take more time for them to rise up again and to be able to work for democracy. Second question, I don't believe that anyone in Lebanon is neutral. That's why we are calling for the state to be neutral, because Lebanon, with the Lebanese people, cannot be neutral. So I don't believe in a neutral government, because no one is neutral in Lebanon. I believe that the political decision concerning the foreign affairs of Lebanon should be neutral to avoid clashes between the Lebanese people around the foreign affairs issues. Go ahead.
Thank you for coming and speaking today. My question's on migration. So I'm a third generation Australian.
Third?
Third. My grandparents came out here in the late 1940s and early 50s. They left for work opportunities.
You're the first generation.
Pardon?
It was the first generation, means.
One of us was, the family were here in the 1800s. late 1800s. They moved for work opportunity because they come from a little village in Lebanon, which didn't provide much. And I still see today my relatives that are still there, not my immediate family, but distant relatives, still leave Lebanon for work opportunity. They leave to go to Greece, they work in Dubai, as this gentleman has said in front of me. Now, that's nearly 60, 70 years ago, and yet we still have migrants leaving this beautiful country, or Lebanon. How do we rebuild Lebanon? We can say that we need democracy, we can say that we can say rhetoric that we're going to rebuild Lebanon, but how do we do that? Do we do that through EU support? Do we do that through the UN support? Do we do that through regional partners? What's your take on that?
First of all, today with globalization, there is nothing like people work only in their countries. Everyone work everywhere. So the problem is not for people to go outside of Lebanon and find work opportunities and go then to another country, then go back to their country. The problem is when they are leaving, they are staying out, and they are, I will say, mixing with, or they are establishing themselves in another society, and they are losing their ties with Lebanon. This is the danger in this, because they are losing hope with this country. I believe that once there will be stability in Lebanon, the multinational companies will come establish in Lebanon. Once these companies come to Lebanon and establish in Lebanon, all the big heads, all the newly graduated students will be able to find jobs in Lebanon and to rotate, maybe work outside for 1 year, then go back for 2 years, and go back again to another country in 2 years. So once we will have stability and the people will believe that they can have a future in Lebanon, it will be much easier for them to keep the ties with Lebanon. But today, when they see how unstable Lebanon is, they feel that it's not, they don't belong there anymore. When they see people fighting and using weapons every day, it doesn't look like them anymore. I will take the last question. I don't take the responsibility of the last one.
This is absolutely the last question on the
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to ask this very important questions to me anyway. When are we going to stop the competition between Al-Kataib and the Lebanese forces, especially at the election time? Thank you.
I will not consider this a question because this question, the answer to this question is very easy. This is not going to happen. We will be together in the election. We will do it. I will take a real question for the last one. Go ahead.
You speak often of decentralization, and
can you raise up your voice?
Yeah, you often speak of decentralization, and while I'm a believer that this can be a plausible solution for Lebanon, one of the greatest arguments against decentralization is that it will divide Lebanon along sectarian lines and form cantons. What's your view on that?
My view on that is that Lebanon cannot be more divided than it is today. And more than that, in decentralization, we do not decentralize the military or the armed bodies. Today, every region has its own militia, so it's not even decentralization, it is partition, what we are seeing today. When you go from a region to another, you feel that you are today, for example, with what's going on in Tripoli and what was going on in the south of Lebanon or in the suburbs of Beirut, this is partition. What we are living today, because we love to lie to each other and to say that we live in a very united Lebanon. And this is a big lie, because Lebanon was never divided like it was today in this current centralized system. That's why we believe that decentralization is the way to unite Lebanon again and not to divide Lebanon.